Hello, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. My name is Christine and I like reading dark and disturbing things. And today I am going to do a book review and just talk about one of the best books I've probably ever read in my life, and that is The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. So my reading year so far in 2024, I've only read a handful of books, but I was kind of getting like bad vibes that like everything I was reading was just kind of okay. Nothing was superb or everything was under 4 stars for me. And then I picked up The Reformatory. And is it too soon to say that I found my favorite book of the year when we're only in January? Maybe it's too soon, but I think that this is going to be the book that everything else I read I compare to, because I just loved this book so much. For me, this is my second time reading by this author, Tananarive Due. I read The Good House last year and I quite enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. And apparently this is a book that has taken her roughly 10 years to write, from what I hear. She found out that she had a great uncle that had gone away to a reform school back in the 30s, and this was in the Jim Crow South, and he died there. And it kind of started this whole look into this school called the Dozier School for Boys, which was like a juvenile hall that children would get sent to, and a lot of them did not make it out. And she tried to do a lot of research to figure out what had happened to her great uncle, and it was really hard to find specific information about him because there weren't really any living relatives that knew him at that point. He died when he was 15 in the school. But it uncovered like this whole horrific truth of what this school was, and she used that school as a backdrop to write The Reformatory. So the Dozier School for Boys, very real school. I actually forgot that it wasn't even called that in this book. They call it the Gracetown School for Boys, but it is taking a fictional character, a fictional setting. Everything about this is fiction except using that school and using the very real horrific things that happened as the backdrop for this school. So that is what we have here with The Reformatory. I will fully admit I did not know anything about the Dozier School for Boys. I had not even heard about it until I heard of this book, and then I started kind of looking into things. And I definitely am not stopping with this book, obviously, because this is a work of fiction, and there are quite a few books that she cites in the back. Let me get there. She actually lists an entire like half page of books that for nonfiction reading on the Dozier School for Boys, which I would like to dig into some of those books and learn more about something that I should know about. So this particular book, it's kind of chunky. It is over 550 pages, and every page was definitely worth your time to read. So we are following two sibling children in this book, Robbie, who is 12 years old, and his sister Gloria, who I believe is around 16 years old. And they have recently, within like the last year, lost their mother to cancer, and they have also lost their father because their father was someone who stood up for Black rights and is now on the run because if he stayed where he was, he would no longer be with us either. So he's on the run, and he's in Chicago somewhere while they're living in Florida in the early 50s. And eventually, I think the hope is that they'll save up enough money that they can send the children to be with the family. But right now, they're very much on their own, and Gloria has taken it upon herself to really act as the parent figure in this sibling relationship. She has quit school, which she really loves school and doesn't want to quit, but she needs to quit to work for this white woman as a maid of sorts and make some money so that they can have enough money to eat and that she can send her brother on the right path. One day, the two of them are walking when they come across this boy that is Gloria's age. He's the son of a very influential white man in town that owns a lot of land. I think that they're farmers. And an altercation happens that was instigated by this boy, and our Robbie ends up trying to defend his sister and kicks this boy in the knee. Um, he wasn't too happy about it, but he was willing to let it go. But unfortunately, his father saw and wanted to make an example out of him. So he has them arrested. They have to go to court. And the judge ends up saying that his punishment is that he needs to go to this reform school for 6 months. And Gloria is just beside herself. She knows that if he goes to this school, that there's a good chance he might not make it out. This school is known for people mysteriously dying while they're there, or they can find any reason they want to keep these children up until they're 21. They could just keep extending their sentence for no particular reason. And so he might be there his entire life, or until he ends up dying. She also knows that these boys are pretty much tortured when they're there, that is like an acceptable form of punishment, and it's almost more like a prison for boys, like a prison with these horrible punishments. So she is going to do anything within her power to try to make it so that she can get him out or get the judge to reconsider. So she sucks up all of her courage and she goes to that farmer, and even though he's a very scary man, she asks him to reconsider, and that does not go the way that she would like. She then tries to find a lawyer that we can go to the judge and appeal and see if he would reconsider letting Robbie out of this sentence. And she goes to the NAACP to find a lawyer, because to find a lawyer that will defend a Black person in this time period is just, it's probably not going to happen. So she is pulling any strings she can. She is, asking for money. She is just to afford this lawyer to try to make an appeal to get him out, because she knows that this is going to be his doom and he is like all she has left. This book, so Tananarive Due is such an amazing storyteller that I was hooked from like the first page. The first page sucked me in. I was in the story with them. I felt for these characters so much. She develops the characters so well. They feel like real people. Like, I find it hard to believe that they're not. Her storytelling is just, it's amazing. Her writing is amazing. There are so many very real little tidbits in here about what it's like to be a person of color, where you're constantly walking on eggshells to not upset this delicate balance that just their existence brings, to not seem too smart, but to not seem too dumb, just to not be seen in any way. If you can be invisible, that is what you need to do, just to kind of coexist in this time period in this period of segregation. And it was heart-wrenching to read. One of my favorite classic books is To Kill a Mockingbird, and again, it's for the same reasons. It's just the storytelling and seeing it through the eyes of a child, this harsh, horrible reality that exists and existed then to even a greater degree. Just to see it through the innocence of a child and try to make sense of this thing that just does not make sense. But in To Kill a Mockingbird, we're doing it through the eyes of Scout, who is not a person of color. And in here, we get to see from a different point of view from a person of color, or from two, because we're following both Gloria and Robert. And just this delicate balance that needs to exist to make sure that they can just survive is astounding. It sounds exhausting, quite honestly. And yeah, so I have tabbed, oh, you can't really tell. I don't tab very far out because I hate when they stick out. But So many passages of just basic observations about what it's like to exist in a white man's world, pretty much. And I just found it, I mean, very eye-opening, but at the same time, very confirming to things that I thoughts and ideas that I already have. I obviously have not lived this life. Just the very realness of the setting in this book is, it just sucked me in, and these characters just really sucked me in. We're also following from Robbie's point of view as he goes to this reform school and has to try to learn to really walk the line to make sure that he needs to stay invisible to this superintendent of the school that just is just an awful person and represents much more than just one person. And I hope that a lot of people get that. He makes a couple of friends while he's there named Blue and Redbone, and they are trying to kind of teach him the ropes, but he's in a situation where he can't ask a lot of questions, because to ask questions makes it seem like he's questioning the system, and then makes him stand out and could go to get punished in some way, whether it's using food to hold back food, to bring them to this place within this school that they call the fun house, which is basically where they torture these kids. And it is alluded to that more horrible things could happen that are not on page, and I'm very glad that they're not on the page. I was worried about that. So Robbie is at the school and he finds out that there are a lot of scary things happening. The reality of what's happening is extremely scary, but then he's also seeing the ghosts of the people that have died in this school or on the school grounds that he calls haints. He can see what has happened to them, and that is also truly terrifying. I do always find human monsters to be the scariest monsters of all, and this book has plenty. I honestly don't even know that it needed the supernatural elements, though it did kind of elevate the story. But it was scary enough on its own without those supernatural elements. Before I forget, there was one thing I truly loved about this book, and that is the use of music and song to resemble like some feeling of hope for these characters. It is mentioned a couple of times, like singing like slave songs to just evoke this feeling of hope within the characters in the book and within these poor boys that are going through what they're going through. And also a music teacher is introduced at some point in this book, and just the fact that music is used as this feeling of escape and feeling of hope. I really loved those. They were just small touches within the book that I really loved. It was also mentioned that the school here, and I believe the Dozier School as well, I would have to read up on it, that it wasn't just a school for Black children, but it was mixed Black and white, but it was also segregated. So it is mentioned that it is not just a race thing, but also an economical standing thing as well, because these white kids that are there are poor and they don't have any means of defending themselves. And a lot of the children that are there haven't done anything extremely wrong. Just like in Robbie's case, it might be such a slight thing. It's just their existence that has gotten them there. Some of them have just run away from home or don't have parents, and they're put in this into this school to try to make them into better citizens. So there's just a lot going on in this book, and I feel like I can't even get it all out because there's so much, but you really just have to read it for yourself. If there was any book that I said everybody should read, I really do think it is this book, whether you're into horror or not. So I know that this book came out near the end of 2023, and I only just got to it a few months later, so I'm reading it now. But I really hope that Tananarive Due gets a lot of credit for this. I hope she wins many awards for this, because I really do think that the Reformatory is a masterpiece, and obviously absolutely 5 stars from me. These are characters that will be living in my heart for a long time, and I just can't say enough about it. I feel like I'm forgetting to say a bunch of things, but really, please just give this a shot. If it doesn't even sound like your kind of book, I think that the story will suck you in. The writing is amazing, and yeah. Now I have to look up her backlist and start reading some more. I do also recommend The Good House if you haven't read it. I haven't read anything else by her, but I can't wait. But I think a lot of people are agreeing that this is by far her best book. So if you pick up just one book this year, I really hope it's The Reformatory. I think it's an important piece of literature in general, and I just love her weaving fiction and nonfiction together, because I think that nonfiction can have some of the worst horror elements that we could ever come up with. Just more horrifying than any fiction piece that someone can come up with. And she has melded these together very well. And like I said, I just can't say enough. I don't even know how to end this video because I'm just like, please read this book. So I'd like to know if you've read this book. Drop a comment down below. Let me know if you agree with me or disagree. I'm always happy to hear other opinions. Also, I'd like to know if you've read anything else by this author that you really enjoyed. Please let me know so I could check that out as well. If the rest of what I read this year is even half as good as The Reformatory, I am in for an excellent reading year. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, stay spooky.